Hey everyone, welcome to our Cold Ones for Caregivers campaign 2021, presented by Imagine IT. I'm Kyle Woody, founder and executive director of Jack's Caregiver Coalition. Our vision is a world where no guide caregiver feels alone. And our mission is to improve the way that guys think, feel, and act through every phase of their caregiving journey. In a moment, I'm delighted to introduce you to our latest honoree, Mr. Rob Smith. But first, a reminder about why we're here. The goal of our campaign is to raise $30,000, enough to make 40 more stories of caregiver support like Rob's possible. We're currently at 37% of our goal, and we need your help to close the gap. Any amount will move us closer to that goal. You can join us for the main event in person at 612 Brewery in Minneapolis or from wherever you are online starting at 1 p.m. on September 18th. The event is outdoors. We'll have live music by the band Burnin' Blue, an awesome silent auction, and an impressive beer wall raffle. I want to thank all of our awesome sponsors whose support makes Cold Ones for Caregivers possible. And a thank you to our awesome team of volunteers who together are making sure that 100% of the proceeds raised during this campaign go directly to our mission. And now, joining us, the reason we're all here, our honoree, Mr. Rob Smith. Thank you for joining us, Rob.
Thanks for the invitation, Kyle.
Yeah, and I remember, when I reached out to you and asked you, hey, would you be interested in this opportunity, knowing how much of a big supporter of our coalition that you are in different ways. Um, you weren't super pumped. You were a little bit, I'll just say maybe shy is the word, or just not super keen. And you said something to along the lines of, like, this really isn't about me. Um, and as I was preparing for this, I was thinking, our mission is literally guys like you, like that. You are the mission. And so I wondered, how did that make you feel?
Well, I think it's a great question in that, this whole place where we find ourselves being caregivers, um, it, I wouldn't say it's an uncomfortable place, but it's like I generally see my role as to provide, to support, to um, be there for family, friends, that kind of thing. And that's, I guess, my default position. So to be highlighted in some way for assuming sort of a really natural role is, I wouldn't say uncomfortable. It's just, in my mind, this is more about um, some of the other people, members of Jax, that are in need of support. And I'm definitely getting support from the organization. I think it's a fantastic um, group of guys, and I've gotten a lot out of it. But for me, it's more about supporting them. It's not really about highlighting me. But if I can do something to help and to support the other guys, then I'm happy to kind of step up and be uncomfortable for a few minutes here with you on the video. So
Hey, that's great. And I had wondered, maybe it was the, I've heard other caregivers talking about, hey, this is not like, I'm not a hero. It's just this thing, and I do it, and it isn't about me. It's about the loved one that I'm caring for. Like, that's a more comfortable conversation, and most caregivers are a lot more comfortable talking about who they're caring for than they are about themselves. So it's really interesting to me that you're sort of saying, no, I'm comparing it to other guys in the organizations, other caregivers that Jax, takes care of. Um, and maybe and so what may help us understand that better is you sharing with us your caregiving story.
well, sure. So So yeah, I think it was 2015. My wife was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, stage 4, and the diagnosis was pretty um, crushing. To be candid, it kind of set us all back on our heels. We really didn't know what that meant. We had to do a lot of um, talking to physicians and friends and family and just everyone we talked to. Um, it was just a really hard time for our family. And right around then, I think I was at an NBC conference. It wasn't long after that. We were at an NBC conference. We ran into you at a table, and
Metastatic breast cancer being MBC, right?
yeah, and we ran into you standing at a table. And it was like everything else at that conference was there for the person who's been diagnosed. Pretty much. I don't. There may have been a couple of things there for the family or for others, but
Yeah.
it was just this, Jax, and this is for the caregiver. It's for the person who's providing support. And I think the first time I saw your table, I don't think I stopped. I think it was well, that's interesting that this is here for those folks. I'm not sure I really need this right now. My focus is really on my kids, my wife, we've got 3 girls. They were 14, 16, and 18 at the time. And, I think my focus was just on them and on helping them. And then maybe the next year when we went back to the NBC conference, I might have stopped and said hello and I was becoming more ready, I think, to accept a little bit of help for myself. And then I got to say that my experience with Jax has been really lightening in that it lightens the load a little bit. You get to talk with other people who you don't need to explain why you're there. You don't need to have the conversation about, well, did you try this? Did you try that? I mean, everyone is so well-meaning when they become aware of your story. People at work, people in your circles, in normal day-to-day life, but all of the Jacks are there for exactly the same reason. And people just listen without a filter, and sometimes that's just what you need. You need someone just to pay attention and not really need a lot of explanation or a lot of justification, just to be heard and supported in any way that you need support. And that's really why I'm here today, is because, and why I'm a member and supporter of Jax, is because I think it's an awesome organization, and I've been able to leverage it, and I think other Jacks should be able to leverage it too.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. As you were talking, I remembered um, meeting you at the conference, and then I remembered, I think the first program event you participated in, which was a brewery tour. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was it. I think, and what struck me about that experience, looking back on it, you were wise to have someone come pick you up after the tour, right? Instead of driving home. I think we strongly encouraged, and nobody drank too much. I was there. We were watching very closely for that. But taking no risks, and and your lovely bride came to pick you up. I remember meeting her in the parking lot, and I as I thought about that, I was like, that's really like this crazy reversal, right? Like typically it's you taking her somewhere and she's getting a treatment or getting support or and here was this total role reversal, in that she came to pick you up after your treatment, so to speak,
Yes,
which is very different, but all still very important in my
yeah,
opinion.
it's good therapy, that's for sure. That social time with people is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, so what should our supporters know about you other than, you're a caregiver? Obviously, that's a huge part of who you are, but what else is neat to know about Mr. Smith?
Um, let's see. Three girls. Right now they're 22, 20, and 18. The oldest is on her way to becoming a nurse, just about finished her studies. The middle one is going to be an aerospace engineer. And the youngest one's just off to university. Just this last weekend, we took her to her dorm, and she's going to do a Bachelor of Arts, Masters of Management combination degree. And it's kind of aiming at becoming a lawyer. So we've got someone sort of in the medical field, someone in the engineering space, and someone looking at law. So it's kind of a trifecta, I think. I think in a way it's a big milestone for us to get the kids kind of out of high school and off to university, and that's been our big focus for Michelle and I.
Yeah.
And we're big family people. We spend a lot of time together. We do a lot of things together. Kind of a crazy way this whole COVID thing has been a bit of a blessing in that my kids were off building their own lives, with jobs and friends and sports and that kind of thing. And we were all home during COVID, kind of trapped in our house. A very nice home, but it gets a little bit small after a few months. And we were being super careful because my wife's still taking treatment and is immune suppressed. So we were like super, super strict on our bubble.
Yeah.
But every night we got to have dinner together. And when we did decide we were going to go do something, go to a park or go, have a little bit of fun, we did it together. And in the strangest way, this whole COVID thing has just been, it's terrible, terrible, terrible thing that I wouldn't wish on anybody. But
Yeah.
the scenario of being trapped with my family has actually been kind of awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be both, right?
Yeah,
Like that, it isn't an either or. Like it can be awful and awesome at the same time, and so that's super cool that you guys were able to, you and Michelle were able to get that, that really quality time right before they all take off, or
yeah,
before at least the last one left the nest.
yeah. So probably within 12 months we'll go from five of us together to being empty nesters. So it's going to be a pretty drastic change, but looking forward to that next step too.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about, so Michelle, she's been dealing with this uh, disease for, is it 5 years now? Six?
Six,
6.
6 years post diagnosis.
Yeah, 6 years. And what? So if you could go back in time to 6 years ago, to maybe the day or the day after that you got that news, and give yourself some advice. So I'm imagining, there's a Rob Smith out there somewhere
Mind,
that's getting that news right today, and because it happens everywhere, all around us. But what would you tell yourself that that would help you, navigate those early times better?
I think the advice I give myself is to just take a little bit of time and slow down. I think everyone's inclination is, we need to race to get another test. We need to race to talk to another physician. We need to, and of course, that's all very important. But you also need to leave a little bit of time for yourself and give yourself some time to breathe and slow down a little bit. Sort of that measure twice, cut once. Don't react to every little piece of information, every little piece of news. All of those things together, of course, are important. But I think if I was to give myself some advice, would be to just catch my breath. And honestly, that's one of the things that I get interacting with Jax is a community of people who um, are either early on in their journey and maybe need that kind of coaching a little bit, or people who have been caregivers for a long time and have a lot of experience, their own personal stories as well as stories with other Jacks, and they're able to kind of maybe put things into a little bit of context and frame things a little bit differently, and then come up with a sort of a rational, stepwise plan that just takes a little bit of the energy away, and it's a terrible scenario to be in, but I think that everyone has their thing, is what I've also found out through this whole cancer journey. Um, to anyone that you meet at work, in your community, everybody has their thing, which is to them the biggest thing in the world. Um, it's not a competition. It's not a race. It's not who has the worst scenario, but everyone has their thing. And I've been able to leverage that. I don't know if it's a self-learning or self-awareness, but I've been able to leverage that understanding that everyone's dealing with something, in all facets of my life. So in my community, with friends that aren't dealing with the cancer diagnosis, um,
Yeah.
work. Everyone has their thing, and I think that empathy, you know, everyone isn't their Facebook profile. They put all their good stuff in Facebook, and
Right.
all the really shit stuff, or I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Maybe you edit that out later.
Yep.
All
No.
the crap stuff um, that people are dealing with, it doesn't end up in Facebook, but
Yeah.
that is what everyone is dealing with. So I think you just need to be really thankful and grateful for what you've got and enjoy it,
Yeah.
and just take one day at a time, left foot, right foot.
Yeah. That's very really really sound advice, and even just knowing you as well as I do, which I wouldn't say is super well, but I've learned more and more about you every time we hang out, and I can even just feel it in the way that you talk and the way that you move. You're very um, sure about yourself and very confident, um, and you just like the tempo that you carry is measured, and it's pretty cool. Like, it's relaxing. It calms me down, and that is exactly what happens, right? The diagnosis is you're freaking out. Like, you imagine this thing in your loved one's body is just growing, every second of every day, and maybe it is or it isn't, but your default reaction, most people's, is to race to every test. If the doctor isn't available till Monday and it's a Friday, well, then you want to change doctors, because they should see you right now. And and it's fear, right? Like, it scares people come into this situation not knowing anything about cancer, a lot of them, and so it's the fear of the unknown. And what better way to alleviate some of those fears and connect with people, like Rob, who they've been there, they've done that, and they can help you know what to really be afraid of versus what is just the noise.
Yeah, yeah. There's a big signal to noise
Yeah.
discussion that we all need to have with ourselves.
Amen. Well, I'm going to pause quick and remind everybody why we're here, that we have a goal to reach, and that's to raise $30,000. And if we're able to hit that goal, we'll be able to help 40 more caregivers like Rob for an entire year. On average, we spend $750 per caregiver per year to support them. But every donation, whether it's $5 or 5,000, every single one of them helps us get closer to that goal. So thank you for your support. Shifting back to you, Rob, what so inevitably you have to have some days, even someone who's as wise as you and knows how to measure your energy output and kind of take things easy. Inevitably you have to have those days where you're feeling run down. And so what do you do, Rob, to renew yourself?
It doesn't happen very often, thankfully. But I would say where get re-energized is just spending some time on the water, fishing. And actually, we had an opportunity to fish together about a month ago, so that was just an awesome afternoon. Great
Yeah.
way to recharge my batteries. I love spending time in nature, like out in the woods. Um, just, I think being alone and being still for a while is just a great way for me to recharge. And I just need to get some time in my calendar and make sure that I'm putting some time aside for me. Because you've got uh, everyone's got their thing that they're dealing with, but you've got in my case my spouse, my kids, they've got demands. They're off to school now. My parents, my in-laws, they're part of this sort of sandwich generation, trying to support them. And I think after a while, you just kind of get burnt a little bit, burnt out, and you just need to be a little bit selfish, a little bit greedy, and just make some time for yourself to recharge and be very proactive about it. And just say, look, I'm going to plan some time. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm just going to go do something for me. And it's a little bit uncomfortable at the beginning when there's all of those demands and all of those urgent things that are going on. But I think if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So you need to. It's like
Yeah.
putting your mask on first in the airplane, right? You need to do that and then help the person next to you.
Right. Which is craziness when it's like it's your kids and wait, I'm gonna put the mask on me when my kid's over here suffocating. That you lost your mind
Yeah.
at first, and then you have to think harder about it. That oh wait, if I'm and so many caregivers have this, even just the most like tangible things, like getting into the doctor to check your blood pressure, and like these are not sort of abstract things. Like they're very tangible. Like, no, you need your heart to pump so you can walk around. Even that people struggle with making a priority. It's just like, and if it's one of these highly intense, type of situations, which many of them are, it literally feels like, well, there is just not, we don't have time for
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I wonder, you know, is how has like so you've mentioned um, the some experiences you've got to have with the group fishing. Um, I brought up the brewery tour, which maybe you didn't want me to bring up. Uh, but I'm wondering if you know like is that so to me like that's a less tangible thing, right? To say that that's helpful because it's not it's harder to put your finger on it. Like, and so how would you say it's been helpful? And if so, like, what's an example of why or why is
So,
it important?
so maybe a couple of examples. So there's a program that you guys have, Jacks to Jacks, and we had a lot of I would describe them as sort of parent issues, and that there's a lot of things going on with my parents and Michelle's parents. We're just trying to help support them from a distance, and it was just that was added on to everything else that was going on, and it was just a little overwhelming. So I sent you a text, and you were able to connect me with some internal resources that were able to help find me um, some professional resources to answer questions, get just really do a lot of the legwork for me and take some of the pressure off. So that was a really tangible thing that Jax was able to do, was connect me with professionals that are able to immediately address my concern and my need.
Yeah.
Second thing that was super helpful was you connected me with another Jack, and there's this Jacks to Jacks program. And we had some great conversations on the phone, and he was able to kind of not talk me off a ledge because I don't think I was close to the edge, but he was able to give me a little bit of okay, here's what I understand your situation. I understand what you're trying to accomplish. Have you thought about trying this? Have you thought about doing that? And they weren't really focusing so much on the disease as much as how do they help me, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and maybe the best one, was I went to a fireplace or a fireside or
Fire Pit
barbecue.
Friday.
Yeah. And so I arrived. I was a little bit late because I was at another event before, but I arrived a little bit late and I kind of just joined in. And I was, 4 or 5 people. I think I'd met one of them before, not really talked, but I just kind of showed up and said, "Hey, I'm Rob." And we sat for like 3 or 4 hours and just talked about what was going on. Like everyone this is what I'd like to know about, or this is what's going on with me, or do you have any advice for this? And that sort of one-on-one or one-on-many kind of sharing session. Um, I hesitate to call it a therapy session because it was really just 4 or 5 guys sitting around a fire and just sharing and talking. We were talking about sports, we were talking about other things, and then we would talk about something that was really specific to our shared scenario. That was really really helpful, and maybe I was able to help some of the other guys there too by sharing something that I was something I had learned or something that I had gone through. But it was just really a great evening.
Yeah, and I'm confident you were able to help some of those other chaps out, and that's part of why you enjoyed it, right? Like you know those moments where you say something or shine a light on an idea that really kind of gives someone else that aha, kind of like, oh, okay, there's a whole nother way to come at this, and so that's it's both, right? Getting the aha moments and giving them is a really cool experience. And I'll shout out to Kathy Booker is who you're referring to, our care navigator. She's amazing. She does it as a volunteer. She doesn't get paid to do that. She just has a huge heart for people in your shoes, and she's so connected and talented and just fun to talk to. Like I just like to shoot the shit with her on the phone because it's fun.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah. So
I would
thank
think it
you,
was
Kat.
appropriate to call her out or not on this
Oh
call.
yeah, it is. And she won't like it, but I don't care, Kathy. You're amazing and everyone in the world needs to know about you. So sorry. That's just the way it is. Um, so yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing those stories with us, Rob. Wondering, our mission. There's the explicit words that it says to improve the way that guys think, feel, and act through every phase of their caregiving journey. But I'm wondering, like, if you were just at Fire Pit Friday and new guy walks in and says, "Hey, I've never been to a Jack's thing. What are we here for? Like, what's the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish?" How would you say it? So what would be your words?
And I think that there's very little anyone in the world accomplishes on their own, and I think it's in this sort of terrible scenario, you need people that um, that kind of know where you're coming from. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a network so that when you know when things are tough, you have that safety net to be able to rely on, so that um, you don't lose your mind. I think that's really about self preservation in a way. You know, that's my motivation. Is just you're very kind in your characterization of me being sort of calm, cool, and collected, and just you know at different points in time, nobody can be that
Yeah.
way
Yep.
all the time. It's that sort of Facebook veneer that,
Yep.
and somewhere along the way, you know, I hope never, but somewhere along the way, I expect I'm going to need a network of guys that I built a relationship with over time to be able to lean on and get support from. So I don't know. Maybe this is a way of putting equity in the bank.
Well, you're very wise, and you're also, I think, giving equity to others in the community, through your support of the community, through your support with your financial support, with your time as a volunteer, and even just showing up at the events. These events are really meaningless if no one comes. So I think we underestimate how important even that is. And I will say, you mentioned it's therapy. I think I like to say it is therapeutic, but it maybe isn't therapy just because we aren't licensed really professionals. Now, Kathy is. I will give Kathy's got some letters behind her name, and that's awesome. I have no issue with that. But the majority of the people in the coalition are just guys like you and me, right? Like we've been there, we've done that, we're doing it, and so that's having that community behind you, um, is very therapeutic, and that's not something to be afraid of. Something that makes you feel better, um, at all. So, anything else, Rob, that we need to know or hear about, or anything maybe that you wanted to share before we close?
I can't think of anything to share other than maybe encourage people to try it. I think that that first event I went to, it was a beer tasting. I love beer, so it was. I am your target demographic. I also love fishing, so there you go. There's two
Yeah,
things two events that you guys have hosted that um, very much align to where I like to spend time and energy. So if I would just encourage anyone who sees this, who thinks this might be for them, give it a shot. Worst case
yeah,
scenario, you meet some folks that are just turn out to be good dudes, and
yeah. Amen. And you've hit the nail on the head. We know that first time is the hardest. It's people that you don't know, and it's just a really, really big lift to come to that first program experience where you're sort of, you maybe it feels like you're at the Cheers bar and everyone knows each other's name, but no one knows your name,
yeah,
and that can be really anxiety ridden. But if you can, to your point, push through that, just give it a try. I think, overwhelming likelihood is that you'll make a connection at that first event that'll help make the next one easier. Um, and if it, like you said, if it turns out not to be your thing, what's the what's the worst that happens? You met some people,
yeah,
that are in your shoes. So thank you for that encouragement. So what Rob is saying, guys, is get your butt to our programs pronto. We don't have time to waste. And although Rob, you did say we should take our time.
yeah.
So I'll try to remember that. And with that, that is a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and thank you for your support. We know that with your help, our goal to help 40 more caregivers like Rob will meet it with your help. And I want to give a quick shout out to our producer, Mr. Chris Cloutier. He's behind the scenes here, making us look and sound great on the internet. So thank you, Chris. And the biggest thank you, to our honoree, the guy that made this entire episode possible, the guy who brought my anxiety level down just by the way that he talks, is Mr. Rob Smith. So thank you, Rob. We're very grateful for you.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. Hope to see you soon.